Om Gurubhyo Namaha. In Sugama, the conclusion, Adhyasa Bhashya is concluded here. While concluding, he touches, Bhashyakara puts certain adjectives. So conclusion is not explaining anything new. It is only concluding means so far we have discussed these things. It is only summarizing what was elaborately discussed. So, although it doesn't discuss anything new, it helps us to clinch certain ideas which was elaborately discussed in the middle, which was proposed in the beginning, elaborately discussed in the middle, concluded at the end. The conclusion only shows the summarization of what was discussed. This is what we have stated. So this helps us to determine what was discussed in detail. Okay, so the conclusion only helps us to come to a very clear-cut, categorical conclusion. Here he gives Naisargikaha Adhyasaha. So Naisargika we have discussed. Naisargika means non-inquiring. That means in a state of non-thinking you find yourself in it. That is over. Next, Mithya Pratyaya Rupaha. This is also a good point here. See, Sachayam Mithya Pratyaya Rupaha. This Adhyasa is in the form of a wrong notion. Mithya Pratyaya Rupaha. Rupa in the form of Pratyaya, a notion. Mithya, false. In the form of false notion. In the form of wrong notion. Okay. Now this Swamiji explains, you see. Bhashyakara briefly stated Mithya Pratyaya Rupaha. Adhyasa is a Mithya Pratyaya Rupaha. This one word explains a lot. It explains a lot. See, Yaduktam Upanyasa Kale. What was stated in detail explanation. Upanyasa is a detailed explanation. Loka Vyavahara Nimittattvena Pratigyanamiti. Oh, okay, in the beginning. Proposition. First, we call it first Pratignya, then Nirupanam, then Upasamhara. Pratignya is a proposition. Technically, they call it enunciation. We call simple proposition. This is what we propose to establish. So, in the propositional statement, what was stated, let us just see. We don't have that board system. It is a very, very inconvenient. I have been struggling hard to get it. If we get whatever I am discussing, I can write and show the statement. And then it would be easy for you to see what statement we are discussing. Anyway, we are not able to get it because we don't know so much of technology developed, but we just don't know how to do that. Mithyagnana nimittaha, illi nodi. See, Mithyagnana nimittaha naisargikoyam lokavyavaharaha. This was stated right in the beginning, in the propositional statement. The same thing Swamiji refers to Bhashyakara's propositional statement, and now says here, you see, Yad Upanyasa Kale Uktam Lokavyavahara Nimittattvena Mithyajnanam. Mithyajnana is a nimitta for Lokavyavahara. See, there he says, Mithyajnana nimittaha Lokavyavahara. Mithyajnana nimittaha. Now, the same Mithyajnanam is stated here. Soyam Adhyasaha eva nanyaha iti jnapanarthamuchyate Mithya Pratyaya Rupaha. This also clinches most important point. The word Mithyagnanam was used, wrong knowledge, wrong notion. Wrong knowledge or wrong notion, Mithyagnanam, the word Mithyagnanam was used as a cause of Lokavyavahara. Now, what was Mithyagnanam, which is the cause of Lokavyavahara? Panchapadikakara interpreted Mithyagnanam as a something, a positive substance, as a cause of it. So he interpreted the word Mithyagnanam as referring to Mula Vidya. Means something, a material which transforms into Adhyasa. Means something substantial which transforms into Adhyasa. Was it right? Was the Mithyagnanam, the word Mithyagnanam was interpreted as a referring to Mula Vidya? Does it really refer to Mula Vidya? The word Mithyagnanam, wrong notion, does it imply Mula Vidya? If Bhashya, did Bhashyakara have that in his mind? If Bhashyakara had in his mind Mula Vidya while writing the word Mithyagnanam, then we could explain it as a Mula Vidya. Then the Panchapadikakara's elaborate explanation of Mithyagnanam as Mula Vidya would have been right. But you see, that is a propositional statement, proposition. Elaborately we discussed. In the conclusion, the Mithyagnanam which was stated as a cause of Vyavahara. Mithyagnanam is the cause of Vyavahara. Or Nimitta, let us say. Mithyagnanam was stated as a Nimitta for Vyavahara. The same Mithyagnanam is stated here in conclusion as Mithya Pratyaya. See, taking the word Mithyagnanam, Panchapadikakara split the samasa, the compound, Mithyacha tadajnanancha. Some people objected, some means only our Swamiji objected. Was it right? Did Shankaracharya mean Mithya, which is the Ajnanam which is Mithya? The Ajnanam which is Mithya? Mithya means Anirvachaniya, Ajnanam means some kind of a material. Did Shankaracharya have this in his mind? No. Because, see, we decide meaning of a word with the help of its subsequent statements. Vakya, Vakya Shesha. In Sanskrit, we call them Vakya Shesha or Upasamhara. What is stated in one place will be explained in the following statements, or the same thing is referred in different terms in the conclusion. With a different words, the same one is stated in the conclusion. This comes very handy for us. This helps us and decide what is the meaning of Mithyagnanam. This is what Swamiji is bringing it to our attention. Mithyagnana was stated as a nimittam for Vyavahara. Then what is the nature of Mithyagnanam? When Panchapadikakara interpreted it as a something material, now how to decide? People say, Ajnanam, what is there? It can be interpreted like this. Now Swamiji says, in the conclusion, Bhashyakara himself is telling that we have stated, Adhyasa means, two statements are very helpful. He says, we have stated the nimitta of Vyavahara. The nimitta of Vyavahara is Mithyagnanam. The Mithyagnanam is nothing but Mithya Pratyaya. Once Bhashyakara told it is a wrong notion, now the word Mithyagnanam cannot be interpreted in any other way. What he has stated at one place, he himself is explaining in the next following statements, like in the concluding statement here. In the concluding statement, Bhashyakara is explaining what he meant by the word Mithyagnanam. Mithya Jnanam, what he meant? He meant Mithya Pratyaya. Now it's very clear. He meant a wrong notion by the word Mithya Jnanam. Because in the conclusive statement, he is telling clearly. Therefore, the word Mithya Jnanam doesn't mean Mula Vidya. If you go by the Bhashyakara statement. One more thing also helps us. What is Adhyasa? Adhyaso Mithya Pratyaya Rupaha ityavochama. Atasmin tadbuddhirityavochama. These 2 points, what he stated in the proposition, while explaining, while concluding. While concluding, he is using different words and saying that this is what I have said before. Now, with the help of this concluding statement, understand what he stated before. These 2 statements, what is Adhyasa? Adhyasa is a wrong notion. And it is the cause of Vyavahara. The same Mithya Pratyaya is the cause of Vyavahara. This clinches everything in favor of Swamiji. In favor of Swamiji, this clinches. So, Mithya Pratyaya Rupaha, he is telling so clearly. Now, Mithya, that means Mithya Jnanam, the word Mithya Jnanam is used as a synonym to Mithya Pratyaya. The word Mithya Jnanam could be twisted because it was possible to twist it with the help of grammar to mean something different. Mithya Jnanam could be twisted to mean Mithyacha tadajnanancha, a false material ajnanam. Okay, a false material ajnanam. But that Vyakarana, with the help of Vyakarana, the word Panchapadikakara reinterpreted is not right because, see, it doesn't concur with what Shankaracharya says in the conclusion. He says, we have stated before, Mithya Pratyaya as the cause of, as a nimitta for Vyavahara. See, Mithya Pratyaya Rupaha, Kartrutva Bhoktrutva Pravartakaha, Sarvaloka Pratyakshaha. He has clinched here. Now, Mithya Pratyaya cannot be split into Mithyacha Apratyayascha. You can't do that. See, the Ajnanam word, being a vowel there, they could twist it with the help of grammar. But if it is used, if it is stated by a synonym, you can't do that in synonym. Mithya Pratyaya word, you can't split it in order to mean Mula Vidya. The word Mithya Pratyaya cannot mean Mula Vidya by any amount of stretching, any way of stretching with the help of Sanskrit grammar. You cannot stretch it. But Mithya Jnanam was available for stretching, he could have done it. But fortunately for us, unfortunately for them, Bhashyakara uses Mithya Pratyaya as synonymous to Mithya Jnana. Now you can't derive Mula Vidya from the word Mithya Jnana. Isn't it? That's why Swamiji's strength is Bhashyakara. Swamiji says, you don't have to dispute, you just patiently listen, patiently read. Bhashyakara himself says many most important points where we are likely to misunderstand, where we are likely to miss it. By our oversight, if we are likely to miss it, what is most important? He himself repeats. Bhashyakara repeats what is most important several times. So from his repetition, you come to understand what he himself meant in his previous context. What Bhashyakara himself meant can be understood from his own summarization at a later stage. While summarizing, while concluding, while referring to the previous one, he briefly states, he says, this is what we have stated. Adhyasa, see, atasmin tad buddhihi ityavochama. Adhyasa means only a wrong notion, a misunderstanding. Not, there is no wrong padartha, there is no wrong substance. It is only a wrong notion. This is what we have stated before. So beautifully from in his own words, Bhashyakara is restating his position. This is what I have said before. This clinches. Here also, mithya pratyaya rupaha vyavaharasya nimittaha. Mithya pratyaya rupaha vyavahara nimittaha, he is telling. Oh, do we need any better explanation? That's why Swamiji says Bhashyakara is sufficiently clear. And they are unable to. They find it very difficult. Because one word you take it, mithya jnanam, interpret it as a mula vidya. When Bhashyakara himself says, I meant by mithya jnanam, I meant mithya pratyaya, they will be shocked. First word mithya jnanam, if you interpret as meaning mula vidya. Second time when he says, I meant mithya pratyaya before. No, you can't do anything. Mithya jnanam means mithya prati, means wrong notion, he means misunderstanding. He means adhyasa. That's all. Because now where is the room for mula vidya? Where is the room for mula vidya? Not possible at all. This is what? It is a great blessing. It is a great grace of Shankaracharya himself. He himself repeats what he said before. In different words, he repeats that idea. So that you will not miss it, you will not misunderstand it. In fact, this is how because Shankaracharya was expert in Tarka and Mimamsa and Vyakarana. Padavakya pramanataha. Padavakya pramana. Therefore, see, this is the way of an expert talking and a non-expert talking. Both of them may be jnanis, but an expert talks. When he talks, his talking will be according to the rules of grammar Vyakarana and Tarka Shastra and also Mimamsa. Therefore, there will not be room for misunderstanding. Unless you forcibly twist it, Bhashyakara doesn't lend himself to be misunderstood. He makes it very clear what is important. That is a great blessing. Okay, so mithya pratyaya rupaha. If you see this word mithya pratyaya rupa and says that I meant the same when I said mithya jnanam before. What else you need? What else you need to say that adhyasa is only a mithya pratyaya? There is no mula vidya. Adhyasa is avidya. Okay, let us proceed. Now, yaduktam upanyasa kale loka vyavahara nimittattvena mithya jnanamiti soyam adhyasaha eva nanya iti jnapanartham uchyate mithya pratyaya rupaha eva. And that mithya jnanam is nothing but adhyasa. Nothing but adhyasa means mithya jnanam. When I said mithya jnanam, Bhashyakara says, I meant adhyasa alone, not something other anadhyasta. Unimposed substance I didn't mean. Because mithya jnana nimitta, mithya jnanamiti, lokavyavahara nimittam. Soyam adhyasaha eva nanyaha iti jnapanartham. To imply this, to indicate this, Bhashyakara uses the word mithya pratyaya rupaha, which is a very good criterion. Now is an ambiguous criterion. That mithya jnanam was a little ambiguous and they took an advantage of it and they used the grammar and tried to twist it and took it. Now here there is no ambiguity. You use whether Vyakarana or Tarka or anything Mimamsa, it will yield only one meaning. It is misunderstanding, a wrong notion. It can't yield anything other than adhyasa. Okay. Then let us proceed. Iti mithya pratyayaha. What is mithya pratyaya? Atasmin tat pratyayaha taking one thing to be what it is not. Atat, taking something to be what it is not. Sa eva rupam yasya soyam adhyaso mithya pratyaya rupaha. Therefore, adhyasa is the form of avidya. Means adhyasa is avidya. Okay. Then next. Nahi adhyasena samarpito artaha kutrapi vartate yena yathartha pratyaya syat. Now, next point is, this mithya pratyaya is not a real pratyaya. The very word mithya means false notion, wrong notion, wrong knowledge. Okay, wrong knowledge, false knowledge, anything. Okay, now the word mithya implies that it is not a true knowledge. I think the word itself, you take the simple straight meaning, you don't have to twist it, do so much of struggling you don't have to do. Straight, Bhashyakara is a very simple and straight. Nahi adhyasena samarpito arthaha kutrapi vartate. This is also a good point. What adhyasa presents to us, doesn't exist anywhere. Adhyasa means a wrong notion. Adhyasa means a wrong perception. What is presented to us by wrong perception, the wrongly perceived thing doesn't exist there. This is important. Just let me take 54 is over. 55, yeah, 56 it is in fact. 50, let's see this side. 55, 56, yes. Mithya pratyaya rupaha. What is presented to us by superimposition does exist nowhere. That is the point. What is presented by adhyasa doesn't exist. That's why mithya means what? False. False means what? Not true. Not true means not true to the fact. There is a notion. The notion is not true to the fact. Fact is one way, and its a notion about it, the notion I have about it is something different. That's why it's mithya pratyaya. That's all. So Swamiji says here mithya pratyaya. So what is presented by adhyasa? Adhyasa means a misunderstanding. In a misunderstanding, take the rope as a snake. When you have misunderstood rope for a snake, the snake thought, the perception of the snake is false perception. Why do you say false perception? Because what you perceive does exist nowhere. That is the important thing. How do you distinguish from a false pratyaya from the right pratyaya? This is an important point. What is a right pratyaya and what is a wrong pratyaya? A right pratyaya means a thought which is true to the reality. Wrong knowledge means a thought is there, but the thought thinks about it differently from what it is. It is not true to the true to the reality, true to the fact. So here, nahi adhyasena samarpito artaha kutrapi vartate. What adhyasa, what misunderstanding presents to us doesn't exist there. See, yathartha pratyaya presents to us what is really there. This is the difference. The yathartha pratyaya means the right knowledge. Right knowledge only presents to us what is really lying there. Yathartha pratyaya. Because what does the mithya pratyaya do? What mithya pratyaya presents to us is not there. The reality is not there. The fact is different. That means what is not there, it presents. That is called mithya pratyaya. It presents to the knower. Knower thinks that. Knower thinks this is what I am perceiving. Yes, the perception presents to you something which is not really there. That is called wrong knowledge. But what is Samyak Jnanam? Samyak Jnanam presents to you a knowledge which is true to the object that is lying in front of you. This is the difference between Yathartha Pratyaya and Mithya Pratyaya. So, nahi adhyasena samarpito artaha kutrapi vartate yena saha yatartha pratyaya syat. Therefore, what adhyasa presents exists nowhere. Now let's take the snake. Does snake exist anywhere? Snake exists nowhere. Neither inside nor outside, nor here nor there. Nowhere. It is only a thought without the object being there. Similarly here, he explains little more. Gives the same example. Nahi sadhi adhyasepi idam rajatamityakarakam vastu shuktau tato anyatra va kutrapi sambhavitamasti. Okay. In the worldly adhyasas, in the worldly events of misunderstanding, in the worldly events of mistakes, what happened? Idam, for example, take idam rajatam. This is silver. When you see a seashell and mistake it for silver, you have a thought that this is silver. You have a perception. You have a thought that it is that this is silver. Iti akarakam vastu shuktau tato. Now this is silver, this perception when you have, it is not a simply thought, it is a perception, it is an experience. Now, what you are experiencing? Silver. Is there a silver? That is the thing. You are experiencing a silver itself without being there. Without the silver being there. You are experiencing a snake without the snake being there. Similarly, you are experiencing the world without the world being there. Or let us say another, you are experiencing the blue sky without the blueness being there. You experience the blue, but it is not there. Okay, this is called wrong knowledge. You experience that the sun is rising and sun is setting, but no, sun neither rises nor sets. That means my perception, my understanding is not true to the object. Similarly, that there is a world and I am the knower of it. I am the knower, I am the subject and world is the object. This subject-object form is a false. The thought of the world is only thought of the world without the world itself being there. This is a great thinking. See, what a great thinking. Like in dream, do you see that you have only a dream perception, dream experience without the dream world, dream objects, dream people being there? Isn't it? You have a dream experience of people, experience of objects, experience of world. But when you say, I have experienced the world, I have experienced people, I have experienced objects, do you mean just because you have experienced the thing must be there, therefore it is there? No. You had an experience, but there was no object you have experienced. This is Adhyasa. This is Mithya Pratyaya Rupa. You have an experience, but there is no object of experience. You perceive the snake, but without snake being there. There is no snake, but you have perceived it. There is no silver, but you have perceived the silver. There is no world, you thought that there is a world, like in dream. In dream, you thought there is a world, real people, everything is really happening. Once you wake up, understand, none of them existed. It was my wrong notion. It was my thought, my perception that there was a world and I was an individual and there was a world. But none of them exist. Okay, so this is what he says. The Mithya Pratyayam is not true to the objects. In Mithya Pratyayam, there is only a thought, there is only an experience without the corresponding object there. But in Samyak Jnanam, when you have a knowledge, when you have an experience, definitely there is a corresponding object there. That's what Satya Samyak Jnanam means. Otherwise, how can you call it Samyak Jnanam? This point is important here. Without naming, he's answering somebody's question. Panchapadikakara says, Mithya Jnanam means a wrong knowledge, a wrong notion, a false knowledge, a wrong notion requires a corresponding wrong object. This is very strange. He says a wrong knowledge requires a corresponding wrong object. This is too much, because if there is an object corresponding to your thought, if there is an object corresponding to the thought, then the thought can never be a false knowledge. It can never be a wrong notion, because there is a corresponding object to it. Means the perception is perceiving the object which is lying there. If I perceive when there is no object, if I perceive something which doesn't exist, then we call it Adhyasa, a misunderstanding. Okay, but instead of that, what you perceive doesn't exist, you call Mithya Pratyaya. What you perceive, it exists there independent of your perception, then you call it Samyak Jnanam. This is a simple. Samyak Jnanam and Mithya Jnanam. So Mithya Jnanam doesn't have corresponding object to it. You have a thought of it. You have an experience of it. But the thing is not there. But you have an experience of it. This is the beauty of it. How clearly Swamiji states, how clearly Bhashyakara states, still people miss it. That is simply because you already filled your mind with such an idea. A prejudged idea, if you keep in your mind while reading the Bhashya, then your Bhashya will not come straight to you. It is getting filtered through your prejudice. Our prejudice covers it up, filters it, covers it up, distorts it, does all sorts of things. So Adhyasa distorts the facts and presents to me something else which really doesn't exist. Adhyasa presents to me something which really doesn't exist. That is the nature of wrong knowledge. Okay, so a wrong knowledge, there is no corresponding object, corresponding reality to the wrong knowledge. So, nahi adhyasena samarpito artaha kutrapi vartate yena yathartha pratyaya syat. Therefore, mithya pratyaya is not yathartha pratyaya, it is only false pratyaya alone. But our Poshankarites say, other than Bhashyakara, Bhashyakara said it is a wrong notion, no doubt. See, they admit. Bhashyakara openly said it is a wrong notion, but they say wrong notion cannot be established, cannot exist without a wrong object corresponding to it. This is a really strange thing. Very strange. This is a big mistake in Vedanta. Okay. Nahi sadi adhyase, in the worldly experiences, worldly events of adhyasa, occasions of adhyasa, nahi sadhyadhyasepi idam rajatamityakarakam vastu shuptau tato anyatra va kutrapi sambhavitamasti. Take in this example of silver, idam rajatam ityakarakam. You have a perception of silver, but there is no object silver. Okay. Therefore, shuktau tato anyatra va kutrapi sambhavana asti. You can't say it might be there, there is a probability it is there. No probability of the objectively existing. What is perceived doesn't exist objectively. What is perceived doesn't exist objectively. Okay. Therefore, there is no possibility, there is no probability of what you see under misunderstanding. What you see under misunderstanding does exist neither here nor elsewhere nor in any other place. It exists nowhere, that's what it means. Therefore, nahi idam rajatam ityakarakam vastu, that idam rajatam, when you perceived it, that here is a silver I am seeing. This silver doesn't exist in the seashell. Does it exist? In seashell it doesn't exist. Okay. Anyatra va kutrachidapi asti. Neither in the seashell nor elsewhere. Then if it is not there, how did you perceive? That's what we are telling. Without the thing itself being there, you start perceiving it. That's an illusion. That's a mistake, naturally. Therefore, nahi shastra ityakarake vastu shuktau tato nyatra va kutrapi sambhavitamasti. Okay. Shuktau hi rajatatvam nasti. See, in seashell there is no silver. Rajate cha idam tvam nasti. In silver, silver doesn't exist. Silver has no existence. And seashell has no silver. Silver has no existence and seashell has no silver. If you translate literally, it means like this. Seashell has no silver in it. Okay. But you perceive. That's what we say is a misunderstanding. But they say, when you perceive wrongly, you require a wrong object also, corresponding wrong object. For any misunderstanding, you require a corresponding object also. Otherwise, it can't be mithya jnanam. This is what Panchapadika says. It is really shocking to us. In those days, it's a strange thing. If a wrong perception requires an object, then it becomes a real perception. How do you call it a wrong perception? This they have not thought over. Even if you try to point out, they are not willing to listen because of prejudice alone. See, a wrong knowledge is wrong knowledge only because there is no corresponding object to it. If there were corresponding object to any knowledge, then it would become samyak jnanam, it would not become avidya. Okay. Vastu shuktau tato anyatrapi kutrapi sambhavitamasti. Shuktau hi rajatatvan nasti. How beautifully Swamiji explained. Rajatecha idantvan nasti. In the silver, this, the idea of this, the notion of this doesn't exist for silver. Because silver is only a perception. Silver is only a perception, it doesn't exist there. Anyatra cha ubhayan nasti. And outside silver, outside seashell, neither. Okay. Therefore, evam prakrutepi. Similarly, now we explained this in drishtanta. In worldly example, let us apply it to Atma. Let us apply this to Atma. In Anubhava, in Atma Anubhava, when you apply this to this thing, aham janami ityakarakasya jnatratvasya, aham janami, I know. This is a knowership, jnatrutvam. I know when you say, it is jnatrutvam. This jnatrutvam doesn't exist. Kutrapi sambhavo nasti. Jnatrutvam has no existence anywhere. Jnatrutvam doesn't exist in Sakshi. I know. This thought doesn't exist for Sakshi. That means Sakshi stands as a consciousness without a notion. Without a notion of I am knowing. I am knower. Without a notion of knowership, Sakshi is a consciousness without a notion of knowership. This is important. Sakshi is consciousness. But that consciousness doesn't become a notion. It is a consciousness without a notion being there. Notionless consciousness. But I know is a notion. Jnatrutvam is a vritti. consciousness appearing as a vritti. Okay. So he says, kasya ityakara kasya gnyatritvasya kutrapi sambhavo nasti. Aham janami ityakara kasya gnyatritvasya kutrapi sambhavo nasti. So I know this knowership is only a thought. This doesn't, the real knower as an entity. Knowership is only a thought. Gnyatrutvam is only a thought. There is no Gnata as an individual existing in Sakshi. Just as silver is only a notion, there is no object silver existing in seashell. Silver is only a notion. Snake is only a notion. It doesn't exist in the rope. Our one Guruji, Gudivada Guruji used to say, Nirvikalpananda Bharati Swami, when you see rope as a snake, you go and touch it, what do you feel? From a distance, you see it as a snake. Okay? You go and suppose you are capable of touching. You go and touch it. What do you feel? What does your hand feel? Does it feel the rope or doesn't feel the snake? It's a good question. It is a good point our Swamiji raised, our Gudivada Swamiji used to say. You put a plastic gloves so that even if the snake bites, it won't pierce into your finger. Okay, put a plastic gloves, but you can feel the touch will remain. Okay, you go and touch the snake. What happens? Do you feel the snake or you feel the rope? Definitely. You feel only the rope, never snake. That means the snake is a notion. You perceive it, you experience it, but what you experience doesn't exist in the rope. Similarly, silver. Take another example of silver. I experience silver. Okay. The silver which you experience does... Oh, just a minute. I'll just come back in 1 minute. Okay, the silver which you perceive, which you experience, doesn't exist. Sorry, let me put the mic and speak. The silver which you perceive doesn't exist in the seashell. In the two examples, we are very clear. Come back to the Atma. Come to the Atma. Now the knowership that I know, the Gnyatrutvam, the knowerhood or knowership, I don't know what you call in English, knowerhood or knowership, whatever it is. So that I know, this knowership is only a perception, is only a thought. Is there a real knower? Knower thought and knower person. Just as snake thought and snake corresponding snake object. Is there a corresponding snake object in the rope? There is only a snake, perception of snake, without a corresponding snake being there. Similarly, you have a I know is a notion. But is there a Gnata as a person there in the Sakshi? In the Sakshi, there is no Gnatrutvam as a person. Gnatrutvam is a notion, not a person. That's why Gnatrutvam is Mithya Pratyaya. See, if there were jnata as a person corresponding to the notion of I know, corresponding to the notion of knowership, knowerhood, I am a knower, I know, corresponding to this knowership, if there were a person knower, then that would not be a mithya jnanam, that would have been a real knowledge. Okay, that would have been a real knowledge. But here it is mithya pratyayaha, because what is there is a sakshi. Sakshi is a pure consciousness, but I have a thought about a sakshi which is totally different from sakshi. I know, but the sakshi is not a knower. You have a thought of a knower without yourself being a knower. You are a witness, but not a knower. That's a difference. Just as there is a perception of snake without the object snake being there. Similarly, Swamiji touches beautifully. Prakritepi aham janami. If you are using the book, you could see them. So, aham janami ityakarakasya jnatrutvasya kutrapi sambhavo nasti. Aham janami, I know this thought exists nowhere. That means without existing, without the knower existing, there is only a notion of knower. So the knowership is a notion, not a person. That's why it is a mithya jnanam. So kutrapi sambhavo nastiti nasau yathartha pratyayaha. What is a true knowledge? What is a true perception, true experience? True experience, true perception, or true notion, all the three mean same. Okay, the true notion, a notion is a true if there is a corresponding object to the notion. Okay, if there is an object corresponding to the notion, that notion becomes a true notion. If there is no object, yet you have a notion. You have a notion, but there is no corresponding object there. Object means the entity. Entity should be corresponding to the notion. If it is not corresponding to the notion, that notion becomes a false notion, wrong idea. This is simple. Okay. Aham janami tyakarakasya jnatrutvasya kutrapi sambhavo nastiti nasau yathartha pratyayaha nachayam apratyayaha patiter anubhava siddhatvat. Nor we can say this notion itself is not there. First thing we told, it is only a notion without the corresponding entity being there. Okay. Now, can you say notion itself is not there? No, because there is a notion. Pratiter anubhava siddhatvat. Because that pratiti is there is a matter of our experience. We experience a notion. Therefore, napi smritirevayam, this notion is not a memory. If it were simple memory, it would not be an experience. It is not a simple memory because it is a real experience. Nor you can say that there is no notion at all. Notion we have it. It is a matter of everybody's experience. There is a notion, but there is no corresponding entity to the notion. That means I know is a notion, is experienced notion, but without yourself being an individual knower. You are a sakshi, there is no individual knower. What a beautiful revelation. There is no jnatru, there is no jnata, there is no jnatrutvam, there is only a notion of jnatrutvam. What is really there is a pure consciousness, non-dual consciousness sakshi, like in deep sleep. In deep sleep, you have you are only just a non-dual atma, non-dual sakshi. Okay, you are just a non-dual existence. So therefore, इत्याकाrakasya ज्ञातृत्वस्य कुत्रापि संभवो नास्तीति नासौ यथार्थ प्रत्ययः नचायम अप्रत्ययः प्रतीतेरनुभव सिद्धत्वात् नापि स्मृतिरेवायं प्रत्यक्षावभासत्वात् तस्मात् मिथ्या प्रत्यय रूप एवायमिति श्लिष्यते. This is the inevitable conclusion. The conclusion becomes inevitable. What is it? It is false knowledge, a false notion. That it is a false notion becomes ultimately clinched. Hence it is proper to say no. Shlishyate means it is inevitable conclusion. That it is only a misconception. Okay. This idea Swamiji got from Sureshwaracharya. Therefore, for this explanation, he quotes Sureshwaracharya's one shloka, Vartika, Meyarthan abhisambandhan na yatha vastu dhiriyam. So, this is only a wrong thought because there is no corresponding. I'm just we already discussed, I'm only translating Sureshwaracharya's shloka. It is not a knowledge of an object because it is not true to the object. No. It is not a real knowledge because it is not true to the object. So the notion the notion is not a real knowledge because it is not true to the object. Meyartha anabhisambandhat na yata vastu dhiriyam athava jnatatvat tadabhavopi. And it is a matter of experience. So you can't say the notion itself is not there. Notion is there because we are experiencing. And it is not an absence of any knowledge because it is known verily. And next is pratyakshanneshyate smritihi. And you can't say it is a smriti, it is simple memory because it's a direct experience. Pratyakshatvat. Okay. Now, how it is a mithya pratyaya. The mithya pratyaya he has explained beautifully. Mithya pratyaya is not as Mula Vidyavadins told, that mithya pratyaya requires a corresponding mithya object. If a pratyaya is true to an object, it becomes a satya jnanam, it doesn't become mithya jnanam. This is what the Vyakhyanakaras missed it. A big mistake, a really serious mistake it is. Note this. This is a serious mistake. They thought that a wrong knowledge requires an object corresponding to it. If wrong knowledge has a corresponding object, it becomes no more a wrong knowledge. It becomes a right knowledge. Because of this wrong conception, they had to assume Mula Vidya. And in spite of assuming, it doesn't solve the problem. It became unnecessarily complicated. Unnecessarily you speculated, which doesn't serve its purpose. Moreover, it created more problems. Therefore, this hypothesis of Mula Vidya is not only unnecessary, but it doesn't serve the purpose intended. It unnecessarily complicates. It creates more problems, more misunderstandings, rather than explains certain things. It doesn't explain. In fact, dropping Mula Vidya is better, explains better. Without Mula Vidya, taking Adhyasa directly explains better. It is with logic, it is with according to Anubhava. Okay, now the next point is Anadir Anantaha. Though I have told Anadi Ananta, but Swamiji wants to explain how this Adhyasa is Anati Ananta. This Mithya Pratyaya is beginningless, endless. Though I have explained briefly in my previous class, here it is 1.5 pages. Swamiji is explaining, this Anadi Ananta is... That means when Swamiji is going to explain 1.5 pages, then it must be very important. Very important means what? Many people, particularly Vyakhyanakaras, missed it. When they have missed it, which is an important point. When they made mistake, then the Vedanta Prakriya goes wrong. Therefore, we have to explain how it is Anadi Ananta. We'll say this in the next class. Okay? Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat.